Hello there, lovely people, it's Alex from Nintendo Life here, and if you've been hearing the rumours, then you may well have heard that there's several people going around saying that Nintendo's going to be releasing a new kind of Switch soon. Admittedly, this is absolutely nothing new. It's something that's been bandied around pretty much since the Switch was revealed. Oh, will they do one with non-detachable Joy-Con? Oh, will they do this? Oh, will they do that? And frankly, we've generally ignored it on the channel, but they seem to be coming thicker and faster than ever, and they seem to be holding more and more weight, and also it's sort of reaching the point where they might actually do something like that. So today we're going to be looking at all the different things that Nintendo could do, maybe what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and generally just speculate the arse off it, so should be good. But anyway, that is more than enough waffling, let's dive right into things. Okay, so the thing that I'm hearing most of all is Nintendo should do a Switch Pro or a Switch XL, you know, something bigger, something better, as sort of like an upgraded version of the Switch. And yeah, I mean, if we get something, which we probably will do, in fact, let's talk about that. In regards to the validity of Nintendo actually doing a sort of a revised version of the Switch, I think honestly it's only a matter of time. A lot of people are saying 2019. I think that maybe that's a little bit early, but you know, it's Nintendo. Very unpredictable. And generally, I mean, if you look at the Switch as a handheld device, I know it is a hybrid, but it is also, it's more a handheld than the N64, for example. And they have done revisions of every single one of their successful handhelds. You know, they had the Game Boy, then they had the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance, then all of a sudden had the Game Boy Advance SP, and then the Game Boy Micro as well. The DS had the DS Lite, and then the DSi, and the DSi XL, and all that gubbins, and then the 3DS had the new 3DS, and the new 3DS XL, and then the 2DS, which is something we'll get onto later. So yeah, it's nothing new. Nintendo doing, you know, revised iterations of their handheld devices. They generally haven't done it so much with home consoles. Well, they did it with the Wii. They changed it so that it was more on its side and it didn't have GameCube ports and was rubbish. And then they went and did the Wii Mini, didn't they? That was a thing. So I don't think it's by any means unreasonable to think that Nintendo will be doing this, and they could be doing it sooner than we think. There's currently a huge install base for the Switch, and they want to be able to ride that as long as possible. And these sort of little changes, little things here and there to make the hardware different, and as much as anything to offer people a choice, because I don't think they'll ever ditch the original Switch unless something very weird happens. Again, it is Nintendo. Anything is possible. But anyway, talking back about the idea of like a Switch Pro, this, I think, is probably the most likely situation. Nintendo are going to see that there's a blossoming market and, oh, you know, and they want to be that little bit bigger, that little bit better, much like the new 3DS, and arguably be able to have, well, generally just something that's maybe a little bit meatier, but I don't think it'll actually have necessarily better spec if they ever do it. Not like the new 3DS, because it kind of fractured the market, but at the same time was never fully realized. It had a few things like in Smash, you could go to the home menu and go into the browser, and that was a fun time, wasn't it? That was really worth the upgrade. And yes, obviously you had the extra buttons and you had the C nipple, which was, you know, a nice little upgrade and was definitely worth, it was worth an upgrade, at least for me. But in terms of raw power, it was more powerful, can do more things, and very few games took advantage of it, like properly. There were a few things, like I said, Smash Bros, you could go and use the home menu properly. There were a few games that were new 3DS only, like Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, and maybe another. I'm really not sure there was, actually. The main reason I don't think they're going to be doing that is because they don't want to fracture or cause any confusion or anything like that, because the new 3DS in that regard, in terms of the power regard, was kind of a bit didn't fully realize its potential, and if it did, would fracture the audience, because all of a sudden anybody who doesn't have the new one can't play, you know, new game X, you know, Xenoblade Chronicles 3D HD. maybe. However, I do think it is entirely possible that an arguably slightly revised version, and maybe a little bit more powerful, but, you know, not actually really, you know, any sort of recognizable amount of performance boost, as it were, but something that can take advantage of the docked mode, you know, the CPU boosted mode that you get whenever you dock your Switch. You plug it in, it draws more power, and it goes, it overclocks, basically. Maybe it's not actually overclocking, I don't know. If you could have a new Switch, a Switch Pro, that could run essentially in docked mode, in that boosted mode, with a 1080p screen, devs wouldn't have to do anything. The Switch would basically constantly just be saying, I'm docked, let me use more CPU power, and the games go, okay. And so you get the full 1080p experience on a handheld. I don't think that's unlikely at all, to be honest, and I think I'd be more surprised if they didn't do that, if they do a Switch Pro. The only issue is the 1080p screen is not going to be able to be much bigger than the standard 720p screen that they've got. I mean, physically bigger, obviously, high resolution, because the Switch relies on the Joy-Con, and the Joy-Con are a set size. And I don't think they're going to be ditching or, you know, bringing out new, bigger Joy-Con just for the Switch Pro. They're going to want to be able to say, yes, these are the Joy-Con, these are what work with the Switch, no matter what Switch you've got, they slide on and they work as you expect. That is the Switch. That is, you know, the whole thing. It's the anytime with anyone, anywhere, with anything and with any place do. But what they could do is they could get rid of that bezel. Now, I don't really care about the bezel personally. It's not like it's really invasive. It's not like playing on an Atari Lynx or anything like that. But I mean, if they got rid of it for a Switch Pro and there was a 1080p screen, I'd be like, yeah, sure. Sounds pretty good to me, as long as I'm not going to do accidental presses. We're golden. So to be honest, I imagine if they do something like this, it'll probably have the same form factor as the standard Switch. And that makes sense in another regard, because then you don't have to release another dock, and so people can just go wham, wham, and, you know, every dock is compatible whether you've got a Switch or a Switch Pro. And I think that is, I think that's very sensible. Maybe they will do like a new version with more power, but I'd be very surprised. I've seen a lot of people say that they should do some Pro Joy-Con as well, and it would make sense, you know, you buy the Switch Pro, you get Pro Joy-Con if they ever even do that thing. It would make sense to sort of bundle them together. But I imagine if they did make, you know, Pro Joy-Con or Joy-Con Pro, whatever, it would probably work with the original Switch as well. It would just be a slight, you know, sort of upgrade, maybe something slightly different. But I don't know why I'm saying this. It's not really relevant. So let's move on. So you could indeed have yourself a bigger, better Switch if Nintendo decide to do that sort of thing. That's one direction. The other direction is they go in the opposite direction, which is a different direction. Basically, they could try and make a smaller Switch, a more portable Switch, which is probably a hell of a lot harder because, again, we're back to the Joy-Con. The Joy-Con would probably need to work. I mean, there's been concepts going around for a while now. I'm pretty sure since the Switch was even first launched, or just revealed, of a Switch Mini that has like, it's more just like a standard handheld unit, and it has the, it doesn't have Joy-Con on it that slide on. It is literally just a solid handheld device. One of my colleagues is really in favor of this idea because he says the Switch isn't portable. I want it to be more portable. Why isn't there a smaller version? I do think there is definitely some merit to this idea, and you do run into a few problems, but this is Nintendo. They will do things. As I mentioned before, with baked-in controls, you know, proper attached controls that you can't remove, like, like they exist still, apparently. If you've got that, then obviously you're not using the Joy-Con, and the Joy-Con are an important part. You want to be able to slide them off, share them with a friend, and you can't do that. And there are some games that require Joy-Con. The one that immediately springs to mind is Super Mario Party, because that's what I've been playing. And you flat out cannot use that game without a Joy-Con on its side. That is the only way to play it. No other third-party controller, none of that. It doesn't work. It has to be a Joy-Con on its side, which a Switch Mini wouldn't necessarily be able to do. I mean, obviously you could just connect one up wirelessly, but I'm guessing it wouldn't come with a Joy-Con because there's nowhere to attach it. Unless there's like a rail at the bottom and, oh no, that'd be horrible. Rail at the bottom so you could sort of hold it on there and the whole thing snaps off and you cry. It's not something that would come up very often, and 99 times out of 100 I would say you are generally would be fine using the Switch in handheld mode, which, translates perfectly over to the idea of a Switch Mini with built-in controls. So it's certainly not out of the question, and it would be quite a good thing for, children and stuff like that, who, the Switch is pretty robust overall. It forms cracks and stuff like that, which is really weird and annoying, especially along the vent. Mine's okay, but yours might not be. Have a look. But in terms of actually breaking so much that it doesn't work anymore, or it's, non-functioning in some regard, generally, the Switch is a pretty beastly thing, but children are beastly things themselves, and they like to break things, or maybe they don't like it, but they certainly do it. So if there was an option for a Switch that was a little bit more sort of traditional, sort of thicker plastic, a little bit more robust, maybe even thicker so that it can be gripped more easily by a child, dropped, it survives, all that sort of thing, I can see that happening, and again, you could just use the same screen as the Switch. You just, take the bezel off. A big question with that, though, is do you make it undockable so that it's no longer a Switch? Now, I'm sure a lot of people will say, well, that's the whole point of the Switch. That's its selling point. That's its USP. Why would they take that away for any other iteration? And it's a very, very good point. But then, this is the company that released the 3DS saying, glassesless 3D, isn't it the best thing ever? Any game you want, it's 3D as long as it's made for the 3DS. It's 3D, look at it, look at it. We've released a version that doesn't do the 3D. And now that's the main version. The main version now that they sell is the 2DS XL. That's in all the advertising and all that, all the promotional stuff. It's the 2DS XL. It's a 3DS without the 3D, so it's just an S. So even though it feels a bit like sacrilege, and why would you do that? That's the Switch, that's its whole point. They might do, as long as it's compatible with the games, which I'd be amazed if it wouldn't, it's going to be compatible with all the Switch games. It'll have all the functionality. Maybe you just can't dock it, or maybe you can dock it, in which case that would solve that problem, which would be a good. As for other directions Nintendo could take a second version of the Switch, there's not really anything that worthwhile. They could just pull a DS Lite on us and just do slight little teeny tiny improvements and make the whole thing maybe better, but the same size pretty much. The DS Lite wasn't that much smaller. It was just maybe a little bit better made, so maybe they could do just like a Switch S or something, a Switch Deluxe, a slightly more expensive but a nicer build. Maybe it comes in more colors, something like that. I don't know, maybe a better kickstand, which I see a lot of people saying they should do a better kickstand. They should do a kickstand that works vertically so you can play one of the 9 games in tape mode that have tape mode. And you know what? I can't remember the last time I used the kickstand, to be honest. It's good that it's there, but how many people use the kickstand, really? It's good to have it, but who uses it? I suppose whatever they do, it would be quite nice if this second version of the Switch that is, I wouldn't say inevitable, but very likely, but when that'll happen, I don't sodding know, because I'm not Nintendo, nor from the future. I suppose the big things for me would be maybe a better battery, because the battery isn't bad in the Switch, it's just about acceptable. It could be a lot better, and if it was a lot better, I know a lot of people would be a lot happier. More internal storage, that seems like an obvious and easy one. The 1080p screen I've already mentioned, that's fairly low priority though, I don't really see that being a big deal. Apart from that, maybe more sensible when it comes to the power delivery, so that it's maybe standard and not, whatever crazy thing Nintendo are doing. Generally, I can't really think of many things that I would improve on the Switch apart from, maybe like raw power, but there's no way they're going to do that. And to be honest, I don't think I'd want it either, because then I'd feel forced to upgrade and, it just wouldn't be a good. It just wouldn't be a good. Oh, one more thing, Bluetooth functionality, like a separate little Bluetooth receiver that works with headphones. Just do that, easy peasy. Just have one for the Joy-Con and controllers and stuff, one for the headphones. You're good, it's golden, it's easy. Maybe a version of the Pro controller where you can plug headphones in. To be honest, you could just plug it into the USB-C, couldn't you? Couldn't you? But anyway, that's what I want. What do you want in a second version of the Switch, or a second or third version of the Switch if you want the Mini and the Pro at the same time? I'd probably buy both. Let me know down there in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, then why don't you click on our brand new and improved new Nintendo Life subscribe button XL Deluxe. And be sure to check out nintendolife.com for all sorts of lovely Nintendo related content. Thank you again for watching. Bye-bye.